First of all, I want to thank everybody that's here. I literally handpicked every individual that's sitting here. So if you don't know the person that's sitting next to you, make yourself acquainted with the individual because everyone that's in here is here for a reason. Appreciate y'all coming and taking your time out. I'm Chad Roper. I have a nonprofit called Dreams Never Expire, and we have partnered with Aurora Healthcare on a men's health series. My partner Mario Brown and I, we've done a podcast with them first. We've interviewed doctors in the Aurora system speaking about health in the communities of color. What can we do better as a community of color to make ourselves healthy? You can have as much money as you want, but wealth, when you speak of wealth is every area in your life being fruitful. That means your health is good, your relationships are good, your revenue stream as well. So that's what I want to talk about, and that's what I want to teach this community. Obviously, I have you guys here because you guys understand that already. And I want to get some perspectives from people, from heavy hitters of the city of Milwaukee. So that's why I have the different individuals sitting here right now, from all age, from younger to more seasoned individuals like myself. So thank you guys for coming. Mario?
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Thank you all for coming out. Y'all could be doing anything else, and you chose to come here tonight. So we pray that something that's said will, be impactful tonight. I'm Mario J. Brown, originally from the city of Milwaukee, living in Atlanta now. National recording artist, singer, songwriter, and Chad and I, we just thought that we wanted to utilize our platform. We've both been in the music industry over 25 plus years. Some of you may or may not know some of the people that we work with in that course of time, but throughout the time, our platforms have, grown, and so we want to use this as an opportunity to just be able to give back, to speak back to the people that follow us, the people that look up to us. Like you said, OG, believe it or not, me and Chad the same age. I know he's way older than me, but so we just he said that because I son him all the time. That's why he's my son. Yeah, so we go way back, brothers. Godfather, my son, and I love him, of course. And we just take this opportunity just to bring this platform to you guys, to be able to have real conversation amongst brothers, something that we don't do often, and we need more of. Absolutely. So, we have a very special guest today, Dr. Hampton. Y'all can make it give some noise for Dr. Hampton. I want to just read a brief bio about Dr. Hampton so you guys have some insight on his expertise. Dr. Hampton is especially passionate about removing barriers to health and equipping his colleagues with the education and resources they need to take charge of their health. He is also an ambassador for the Advocate Care Center, a place where patients receive multidisciplinary care in one visit. He is one of less than 5,000 board-certified obesity specialists. That's huge, working with patients in the clinic with small groups enrolled in diabetes prevention. And he comes all the way from Chicago, Illinois. So without further ado, Dr. Hampton, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is what it's all about. And before I even say anything, I want to ask all the men, how many of you guys have kids? All right, so more than half of the hands went up. And so I say that to say, I'm really not here for you. I'm not really here for me. I'm here because we have kids, right? And we got grandkids. And so everything that you hear tonight is about figuring out how do we have more time on the planet for them so that we can coach and lead them and be here for them. So that's what it's really all about. I'm passionate about wellness. I'm passionate about obesity, medicine, helping to resolve that, diabetes, and something called metabolic syndrome. So I'll explain that later. But I just want you guys to understand, you don't have to be sick. You don't have to be ill. There's very simple things you can do to be healthy. And it's really not painful. In fact, you'll feel better. We're here late at night, but yet you can feel good being here late at night because if you take care of yourself a certain way, you'll heal. And all those chronic illnesses won't be your destiny.
Dr. Hampton, question right off the gate. What made you start on this?
I'll focus on how I got into lifestyle. And it started with my wife. When she developed type 1 diabetes, I was you know, she looked at me and said, I'm scared. She's a pharmacist, and yet she was fearful because she knew I don't want to have to stick myself every day, right? So she looked at me and said, you need to help me. And I'm like, I'm a doctor, I'll figure this out. But I realized that what I was really good at was managing chronic illnesses with prescriptions, medicines, and surgeries, and suppressing symptoms. As I did my research, I realized, oh my God, you can actually heal and reverse disease, but you can't do it with procedures, surgeries, and medicine. So as I tried to help her, and I learned a lot doing my own research, I figured out that not only can I help my wife, but I can help my patients. And then when I shifted from disease management to reversal and healing through nutrition and lifestyle, I started taking people off of insulin. I started taking people off of blood pressure medicines, and I was just as shocked as my patients were. So my passion right now is to reach as many people as possible to help them understand, again, like I said earlier, you don't have to be sick. You just have to learn these simple principles. And if you learn these principles, you'll be able to, kind of have energy, be here for your family, and that's what kind of really makes me passionate. So I'm trying to scream from the rooftops that there's a better way. And hopefully we'll reach more people, particularly in communities of color where there's so much chronic illness.
Absolutely.
So how important would you say it is for us to have routine checkups?
Man, routine checkups, okay. So you'll always hear from the doctors, you need to see your doctor for health maintenance checkups, right? My goal is to help people optimize themselves. So if I get a person in front of me who's pretty healthy, but yet they want to be healthier, like for example, if I make it personal, this year I want to get better at meditation. I want to spend some time in sauna so I can detoxify. We didn't even learn the term detoxify in medical school. And I want to be able to do some things like massage. So I want to optimize myself. Now, when it comes to health maintenance for me, it's about identifying what are my weak spots, what in my family history makes me vulnerable. And then once I identify that, then I say, well, let's just say dementia's a thing. So what do I need to do to prevent dementia? Then the next thing you do is what kills most people? And so you think about heart disease, stroke, cancer, dementia, right? And then you say, well, what do I need to do to mitigate those risks? So when you think about health screenings, it's really about figuring out where I'm weak. And I used the term earlier, metabolic syndrome, metabolic dysfunction, which basically talks about blood pressure, blood sugar, your waist circumference being bigger than it should be, your triglycerides and your HDL, that's the cholesterol stuff. If you have three of those, 3 out of 5, that would mean that you're at risk for metabolic syndrome. Why do I care about that? Because that's the risk for hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, cancer, dementia. In other words, all the chronic illnesses that kill you is the same disease. Too much insulin being made. Why do I make too much insulin? Because I'm eating things that require insulin, sugar, starch, too many grains. So what's the solution? It's not pills. It's not surgery, it's not procedures. It's reducing the consumption of things that raise your sugar. So if we simply do that one thing, you will prevent 70 to 80% of all chronic medical conditions. And it should be, again, on CNN, screaming from the rooftop, but our system focuses on managing. And so that, again, so if we can learn those simple principles, it's a perfect example is ribs. So if I just have ribs and I figure out how to put a rub on it without barbecue sauce, I've solved the problem. Because barbecue sauce is sweet baby whey, it's fructose corn syrup. So those little bitty principles, I can still eat my ribs, but I need to learn what to put on it or how to prepare it.
So a good ribs don't need sauce anyway. I don't know about y'all.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. And with all these brothers in here who probably know how to barbecue, they know that.
Yeah.
You smoke some good ribs, if it's falling off the bone, do you really need the sauce? And the answer is no.
Absolutely.
So you're not going to suffer doing this, you just have to learn those principles.
Basically, it's a lifestyle change. What I've noticed in my years, and especially in traveling abroad, is that what we in America do is we over-consume everything. When I'm in Europe and different places like that, the portion size of a plate when you go out to a restaurant is drastically different than what we have here in America. And I noticed that what you just said is managing illnesses. The reason why they manage illnesses, correct me if I'm wrong, so that they can make the revenue off the pharmaceutical sales. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, if you go into a restaurant, you would think that eating all the bread would then make you not want to eat the food, but it actually makes you want more. So some of those foods that are, filling our plates, if you fill it with the right foods, it won't do that. So just imagine if I give you a steak and I ask you, in fact, I'm going to be really generous and give you 2 steaks. Now, you guys are all men. Very few of you guys can eat 2 steaks. But if I put that steak in front of you, eat that steak, and then I say there's a little sweet potato pie, you're going to find some room for the sweet potato pie. Because there's something in your brain, that euphoria, those endorphins that get triggered when you eat certain foods. So when you eat the way I suggest, where you reduce the starch and sugar, you're not going to really be hungry for a couple of reasons. One is because you can't eat too much steak. If I give you 10 boiled eggs, you can't eat all those 10 boiled eggs, right? So the first part is that you eat the right foods, but the second piece is that once you train your body to burn belly fat as its fuel, so when you become more ketone-centric, which is breaking down fat, and less glucose-centric, where you're focused on sugar, you won't be hungry. My first meal today was at around, literally before I came to this event, 2 or 3. And then I literally wasn't hungry. I just ate because I knew it was time to eat. So you have to retrain your body. Good news is that it only takes a couple of weeks to retrain your body. Even when you fast, give it a few days. Every day it gets easier and easier when I say fast, I'm thinking intermittent fasting, maybe eat between 12 and 8. So maybe the first day you eat at 9, next day you eat at 10, but your body adapts fairly quickly. And imagine how efficient you'll be if you can actually not depend on that sugar fuel and you're using your body fuel. It's a much cleaner fuel source when you break down. It's like a solar panel as a fuel source versus a coal mine, without all those nasty byproducts that come from breaking down glucose. So once you learn how to train your body, it changes everything. And as a physician, I need to be mentally clear, alert, and sharp. So once I discovered this way of eating, I was like, wow, I'm so much more efficient. And I can do multiple things and still feel rested, still have time for my family at the end of the day.
Makes sense.
So one of the things that we try to do with our platform is just really encourage people to go see the doctor. Because as men, a lot of us are afraid to go see the doctor because we just will avoid it rather than going to go make sure that we're okay. And so I wanted to ask you, what does health look like? I mean, you can look at somebody and assume that they're healthy, and they may think that they're healthy because they don't look like what they deem unhealthy people look like, And so when you go to the doctor, you find out these things that, I've heard so many different stories. Some people don't want to go because they're like, well, I don't have anything. If I go, I feel like I'm going to be diagnosed with something or misdiagnosed. So can you just speak to, just especially in our community, why that is, or have you heard of that?
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying that we have to understand why people do what they do. I'm a big fan of the root cause of disease, but what's the root cause of the hesitancy to go see the doctor, right? And some of it is not just a syphilis experiment and knowing that. It's more, I can give you, I thought about, when I talked to the president of one of our hospitals, Rashard Johnson, which is a privilege to mention his name because he's an African-American president of 2 of our hospitals, Trinity and South Suburban. So we talked about James Marion Sims and how they took his statue down from Manhattan, New York, only in 2018, right? And when you think about the fact that this guy literally was doing surgeries on women of color without anesthesia and things like that, right? So when you think about that history, but you'll say, well, what does that have to do with today, Doc? Well, people get that history from their families, even if it's a perception. The perception is, I don't trust the health system. You think about Margaret Sanger, who was a Planned Parenthood founder, right? And how she was targeting women of color to give them birth control. Now, back in the day, you wanted to have a lot of black babies because they were profitable, right? All you strong black men in here, they would love to have you guys, keep making more babies. But once we became free and less profitable, all of a sudden, now we have to, we don't want to have black babies. So now we're going to, when Norplant was invented later, they're targeting black women. Back in the day, they call it the Mississippi appendectomy when they did hysterectomies without the patient's knowledge. You go in for a gallbladder surgery. So what happens is, you don't have to go to history specifically, but the parents and the grandparents, their perception of healthcare is negative, so that by the time it's time for you to get a vaccine or deal with the healthcare system, or when you walk into the office, you never see a doctor that looks like you, right? I mean, 500, 600 black men go to medical school every year in a country of 360-something million. That's embarrassing. So we have to do better. And I think that the perception piece is what leads to people not feeling comfortable in dealing with hesitancy. Now, the other part of the question was, how do you know you're healthy? Believe it or not, when you have a wide wrist, you're allowed to have a slightly higher weight than a person with a smaller wrist. So people of color tend to have bigger bones. So LeBron James's BMI, body mass index, height and weight, is 29. That's considered overweight. Is LeBron James overweight? No. So because he has muscle mass. So the point of it is, we have to understand what, again, metabolic health is. What's my blood pressure looking like? What's my blood sugar looking like? My belly is probably the number one identifier for heart disease, stroke, and metabolic dysfunction. So is my waist too wide? And again, the triglycerides and HDL. I would start there. There are way more tests that a doctor like me would order. And let me give you 2 pieces of advice that you should ask your doctor about. A fasting insulin. Because a fasting insulin may be high. Your insulin may be high because your body's keeping your sugar low. Which means that you'll do a blood sugar and it looks okay. But if it's working hard from your pancreas to keep it low, diabetes is on its way. So a fasting insulin level is one thing you can do to predict diabetes 5 to 10 years in advance. Number 2, and our health system offers a coronary artery calcium score test. Now, that identifies plaques in your arteries in advance. So you can predict a heart attack 5 to 10 years in advance versus like a stress test, right? It's a $49 test, and guess what? When you do that test, they scan your whole chest. So for $50, you not only see if your heart's okay, but do you have anything going in your lungs? They have to tell you about that too. So it's really a value proposition, which is why I'm so happy our health system offers that at an affordable price. So I kind of would think about metabolic syndrome, those 5 things I mentioned, and then I would think about us understanding better why people struggle. Is because of the perceptions they've gotten over the years. And to be honest with you, it's not just perception. We all still struggle with racist behavior.
Absolutely.
Even as a leader in the healthcare system, doctors of color are like, are they going to promote me? You're always worried that your color is going to impact your ability to advance. And so you're always fighting that internally. And then we need to be in health systems that embrace diversity so that everybody and who's working hard and doing a good job will have a fair shake.
So what I want to do now, I got these distinguished individuals out here in the audience. I want to take some time and go out and talk to them about certain things, because we have one of the most distinguished gentlemen in the building is probably, my guess, the most healthiest person in the room. His name is Mr. Mark Wade. He's hands down the most healthiest person I've ever met in my life. I said, Uncle Mark, want me to get you something to eat, man? He said, man, I got a meal plan going on. I just got back from the Super Bowl. I'm only doing certain things, man. And when I tell you, when I go to the gym and I see Uncle Mark in the gym, I just go to the other side because I can't do nothing with it. And I call him Uncle Mark because he's older than me, and he got me on lock. He's hands down one of the most healthiest people I know. But that's because he has a discipline that the average person don't have, which means he excels in other areas of life because he has a discipline. That's just not how he eats. That's how he does everything. I don't care what it is. So I want to step into the audience and I want to talk to some people about, I'm going to start with my boy B Justice. He's a rapper, a national recording artist, so I can invite him here. And I want B Justice to talk about the things that he may have questions about when it comes to his health, because he'll be in the studio till 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and he'll get up in the morning and sell 15 cars at 6 a.m. He went to bed at 3. And then he'll catch a flight to Phoenix, Arizona, where he buy a property and sell the cars in Phoenix, Arizona that night. And then he'll sleep on the plane, and when he lands, he makes sure his Turo cars is all in order and his Airbnbs is done. So I want D Justice to talk about something personally with him that maybe you can help him, because that's why I got him here.
Thank you for that introduction, my man. That was amazing. That was amazing. I feel like y'all would be preaching to me because I don't get checkups like I'm supposed to. I'm just being honest. I'm in my early 30s and it's still like I'm in my early 20s. And like all the stuff he said, I'm on the go. The body feel like it's good, I'm gone. If it feel like I need to sit down and take some rest, I do that. At my age, where would you say, when is it important to go get a checkup? If it is important, if I feel healthy, I feel fine.
Yeah, it's important because genetically you may be predisposed to some things that you're not thinking about. So the things that I mentioned, you want to have a way to measure what is your cholesterol. And when I say cholesterol, I'm talking about the triglycerides and the HDL. The total cholesterol, not as important because it includes the good and the bad. So is it too much good or too much bad? You can't tell. There's ways to take the total cholesterol and break it down into particles that small versus large. You don't want a lot of smalls versus large. I don't want to get too technical. So the goal is you need to, it's like taking your car into the shop, right? Now I'm looking at you, you're like, I used to have a Jaguar. And you're a Jaguar. But if I take my Jaguar and leave it in the garage. And I did this before, because, I'm a family guy. I get the little Honda minivan, right? And my wife said, you driving this now? I said, okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Right? So, but when I finally took that Jaguar to the garage, it was like, chugga, chugga, chugga. It wasn't the same. And my mechanic said, you're a Jaguar, you gotta put it in the road. So the first thing that you have to do is find time to exercise. And I literally have, you can do 15 minutes twice a week with bands, like high intensity, slow and steady. There's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ben Bokikio, who has a book that talks about his smart exercise. It's 15 minutes twice a week. That's all so there's ways to be efficient, and when you're busy like you, I have to think efficiency, right? So a guy like you, so what do you do about sleep? Because when you're intense and trying to do your thing, so what you want to do is try to figure out how to get some type of consistency so that your circadian rhythm is reasonably predictable. And if you can't do that, what you do is you're going to have a sleep deficit. And it takes a while to recover, but you got to catch up. And you may notice that when you get enough sleep the next day, you still don't feel 100%, right? And then you have to individualize things, because some people can do just fine on 6 hours, other people have to have 8 hours. So you listen to your body. But the key thing is that you want to get baseline labs, find a way to start moving, find a way to keep your stress low, find a way to make sure your sleep is consistent, find a way to make sure the relationships in your life are supporting you, because you're busy, you want to make sure they're okay, you're okay. Before I came to this event, I literally sent the invite to my wife and said, can I go to this event? And if she said no, I wouldn't be here, because I understand that my relationship, if I go home tonight and there's tension, then how the heck am I going to be successful? I'm not even going to be able to focus. So I have to make sure my relationship's okay. I got to make sure my emotions are okay. And I have a nest in a rope acronym that, nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, how we think, recover from trauma. Your relationships is a rope. Relationships, avoid organisms and pollutants, and your emotions are okay.
Because I need the younger individuals to get this piece from this. I want to talk to Uncle Mark, right? I told you guys how Uncle Mark is the most disciplined person I've ever met. I want him to explain, first of all, Uncle Mark, where did you get that from? And then second, what made you apply it the way you apply it? Because I've been in this industry if I had the discipline you have, I'd probably worth $300 billion. So can you give us some game about first of all, where that discipline come from, and then what makes you apply it on a regular basis?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation and all your kind words. And being worth $200 billion ain't bad. So I think that probably the discipline that I had primarily came from my dad. We had rules in our house, and I had to do what he said. Then I started reading my Bible, and it was some things that I decided that I really needed to be, and I tried my best to be in line where God say I should be, so I can get what He say that comes to me, because the Lord has some promises for us. So again, probably the biggest piece of my discipline probably came from my dad. My dad instilled habits in us that you just really hated coming up, but he made you do stuff. Now, you get to a place where the best thing in the world is when you can make yourself do stuff. It's bad when somebody says, well, there's a million things that the government can do to you, that they can make you do. And it's awesome when you can make yourself do stuff. What I really try to do all of my life is that, like I told you, I was going to come here. The weather was a little bad, and I was a little like, I don't know. But the way I fix up with people when I don't do what I say, I do whatever they tell me. I don't want to do what you tell me. I want to do what I say. So I always try to do what I say, so I won't have to do what you say. So that's one of the habits that I have. And it is certainly a pleasure to see people seeking health, because health is probably the best kind of book. And one of the things my dad used to say to us when we were young was that if we tried to fool him about something, he would say, if you let me look at the movie, I'm going to get the picture. I've looked at this brother's movie here, with all his life. I've looked at this brother's movie a long time. I know that their movie is awesome because I get the picture. I looked at your movie for like maybe about 27 minutes. Father, I see something really awesome in you. And I'm so thankful that you grace us with your presence and offer me wisdom to us. If I'm listening to you, I'm going to attack you just for about 7 minutes when this is over. So thank you very much, and that's my story.
Thank you, Uncle Mark. I appreciate that, man. I hope you don't want me calling you Uncle Mark.
I'm 65.
See, look at that. He look better than me at 65. Now, see what I'm saying? That's what discipline to do for you. Did y'all get that on camera? That's what discipline to do for you. Discipline will take you places that talent can't. Hear that part. That's key. Discipline will take you places that talent would never get you. Trust me, I know a lot of talented songwriters, producers, artists. That's in the same place they were 15 years ago. They didn't have discipline. So make sure you understand that concept.
And I wanted to say this real quick. What resonated with me is, you say you learned it from your dad. Like if you think about communities of color, at least 75% are single families raising babies, and most of it are women, right? At least that's the perception. So that's why it's so important that we take this seriously, and why I started off with, why are we here? Grandbabies, kids, and imagine if you didn't have that person giving him that guidance. And these are little nuggets that they give you. That nice little parable you suggested, those things stick with you. And that's why we have to do this. And the impact you'll have won't just be your kids in the house and your grandkids, it'll be your community. Because you'll reach people you never even meet. I'm always impressed when I do a YouTube video or something, and people are like, you helped me lose 50 pounds. I never met them. So the impact is like that butterfly effect. It's going to spread.
Absolutely. And speaking of family and fathers, I want to talk to the next gentleman, distinguished gentleman by the name of Caleb Haywood. This man is a prime example of when you are an amazing father, your offspring becomes an amazing individual. I met his son maybe he was in high school. And I said, man, this is an amazing young man, not knowing who his father was, even though his name was the same, it never clicked. And then me and Kevin was together, and I actually met his son. I said, wait, this your son? This is a hell of a dude right here. Which means it didn't come from nowhere, it came from somewhere. So Caleb, as a brother that I respect, I just had a son, so I'm taking those, I'm gonna be knocking down a little bit, figuring out what the game plan was with you. Because this is a part of the health part of it as well, because I've learned in the last 6 months of having my son that he's not gonna do what I say, he's gonna do what I do. So I wanna know, what in the world did you do, man? Because it's literally the remix of you, as we say in the music game. It's the remix of you. So what did you do as a father? Because that's an important health piece. Because he has an amazing son. I think he's in like Congress or something like and he's like 22 or 23. You know what I'm saying? So talk to us about that, my brother.
Well, first, thank you very much for the invite. I definitely appreciate being here. And I agree with Big Rob. When you say we'll only be here in half an hour, and you know, when you get invited somewhere, you're not sure what you're going to get. But you got to call in a blessing. And immediately I was intrigued by the information and education he was given. So I'll say thank you for that. And I got a bunch of questions too, you know. But to answer your question, Chad, I think that when I was young, if you had asked me what I was scared of, I would probably said nothing. And as you become a father and you grow, you start to have fears. You start looking at the world through a different lens. Things that you would take risks with and for, you just won't do. And that includes your health. And so, you know, I used to stay up all night, play ball all day, stay up all night again, and whatever else. And now I try to force myself to get sleep. I didn't become sleep. It's really because I'm thinking about my kids. It's a weird thing. Like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, you need to get some rest. You've been up late the last few days. And it's solely because I'm trying to, I don't even think nothing's wrong with me. I don't feel nothing's wrong with me. But I'm trying to regulate and give my body rest. Just because I'm conscious of, as you said, being around. My biggest fear is not being able to talk to my children when they need advice, to be able to guide them, to be able to coach them. I know how dangerous the world is. So I think 2 heads is better than one. I think that you call it the remix. I call it on the rough draft. He the final version. For now, until he had one, you know, I got all the red marks on my paper and the circles, and he's the new addition, as they call him K 2.0, and so those things, you know, when you say what did I do, I understood very early on that he was a sponge. It's ironic, we talked earlier about, you spoke about health and the importance of the family and relationships. And then you spoke about the lessons you got from your father. I grew up in a house full of women. I was never around my father a day. And so I got lessons from the women in my family, my grandmother and my mother and my aunts. And they ate pork and chitlins and all the other stuff that we probably shouldn't eat. And would you say you eat the grills without, you know, we eat the chitlins without the hot sauce, I guess. I don't know. But my point is, some of that poured over to why I wanted to be a great father. And not just me. You know, I grew up around, I had like 4 or 5 real close friends that we lived next to each other. And none of us had a father. We actually had a friend that we come into high school, and he had a father. And you know, we used to rip each other, talk about each other. And we would say, man, get out here with your father having what? It was like a bad thing for him to have a father, right? So you get a child now, and you realize that everything you do, he mimics, he mirrors. The beauty of it, Chad, is this. I wish I could do it over, because as great as I think he is, there's some things I could have done different and better. And I didn't know it until now, but literally, your kid will run through a brick wall for you, or for himself, or for a goal, or for a task. They listen to what you say. It's just that sometimes we don't challenge them enough. We don't, because we just kind of live our life. But if you say, listen, at 21, you do next. At 25, you do next. Literally, when they're 5-year-old, that's all they know. You know, and I remember the first time my son met the mayor. Real quick story, and I get a mic up. Literally, I was going to an event for a groundbreaking. He was in the car with me. He was 6 years old. He has a little suit on. I said, when we get on the corner, it's going to be like 500 people here. And somebody walks up to you, shake their hand, shake it strong, look him in the eye, and say your name with confidence. He was 6. Lo and behold, that's how God works. You know, on the corner, the first person walks up is the mayor. The mayor leans down to him, shakes his hand firmly. My son says his name. As the program goes on, the mayor's at the podium talking. He said, before I start, I want to say, I received the strongest handshake from a 6-year-old I've ever received, right? What it was is, a kid all that day understood. My father told me something. I absorbed it, I executed on it, and I get this reward. That's for anything. You can give them anything. So you want to try to make sure you expose them to the best things, the things that you didn't have, you know, even when for me, going to Chicago when I was a kid was a thing. Right? So the first time my kid was going out of the country, I was like, I don't know about this. And I realized that was me. So I'm gonna ask my question sort of pass the mic.
Yes, sir.
Hope I answered your question, Chad.
Yes, you did.
And thank you for being a good uncle to my boy, because he looks up to you, so I appreciate that so much. Whenever he's with you, I just feel like he's a good age. My question is, as you're trying to be, as a black man, one that really cares about the community, it's great that I have a good son. When I think about all the other boys and girls that we gotta find a way to impact, and it's only 24 hours a day. So not only can you have to be a father and do your regular vocation, your regular job, you also have to find a way to include yourself in some of these solutions or these problems and come up with a solution in the community. Now you have this whole stress level. So you have this dietary thing you got going on that I gotta watch, and also this level of stress. Because I've heard stress can affect insulin and sugar levels and all that. So how important is managing stress, I guess is my question. And is stress and diet, do they have a direct relation?
For me, just in terms of reaching our community, that's why I'm doing a podcast and a YouTube channel and coming to stuff like this. So I try to stay in my lane. Talking to if I talk to the finance, brother, we talked to earlier, right? So I let him do finance and I'm doing healthcare. But I stay in my lane, and then he'll reach the community and I'll reach the community. It's just slightly different. So that's number one. Stress is important, and what I try to do is I leverage the people around me. So if I put a video out there, I'm not going to create a thumbnail. If I make a video that's not just me talking to a mic and it needs like editing, somebody else doing that. So I've learned to leverage my time and be smart with it, add my expertise, and do it that way. But if you have too much stress, even going back to metabolic syndrome, right? That's going to create those stress hormones, the cortisol, adrenaline. And too much cortisol leads to too much. It's going to make glucose because your body thinks you're in fight or flight. And it's worse because it's chronic stress. I'm not happy with my supervisor, or I'm doing something I don't feel like I'm prepared for. So all that chronic stress then means you're chronically making extra glucose. So now your risk of diabetes is high. Oh, by the way, all that glucose floating around your blood is going to harm your kidneys. Oh, it's going to irritate the blood vessels and lead to heart attack, stroke, dementia. So it's important to manage stress. And what I do is I'm always filling my cup. My brain is a cup. And I always fill it. So if I'm on the way home from this event, I may put something inspirational on like Les Brown. Let's hear about Les Brown. So he has to say, he'll get you fired up, right? And then I'll fill my cup with good stuff. That'll reduce my stress. Or I get really creative in terms of, what's my next thing for tomorrow? Maybe I'll listen to something for my meeting tomorrow to prepare it. So you have to problem solve. You have to see what's the problem, what do I think I can do to solve it, and then come up with an action plan. But you have to actively reduce stress in your life. You have to learn how to meditate. You have to learn how to be on a better sleep plan. You have to learn how to have a healthy relationship so that you won't be stressed about that. You have to learn to have the courage to talk to your supervisor or their supervisor when things are not going well. I'm not going to live in a toxic world. And so you control the things you can and don't worry about the things you can't. And I think we spend so much time worried about, I wonder what's going to happen to your son. Who is he going to become? It doesn't matter. You did your part as a father to lay the foundation. What he becomes, that's on him. But I guarantee you, my kids are 24 and 22. You're going to be a father until you leave the planet, because they are always in need of yours. So what you do is you don't worry about the outcomes. Focus on the little things you can do, and that keeps my stress low. My job is to get here and open my mouth and talk. The outcome, I'm not worried about that, and that keeps me grounded. And keeps me okay with Tony, because I'm just trying to be Tony. And when I talked to the young man earlier, the son of one of our hosts here, I really was able to hear and help him understand. Be comfortable being yourself. And once you add value, that's why diversity is important. Just be yourself. And when you're yourself, that's enough. If it's not enough for a dude down the street, that's okay. Because there's a whole lot of other people going to be happy with who you are.
And so I can't eat cereal no more. I can't eat my first plate.
That's an example, real quick, of highly processed food. So what you do is this is what I have to say. If you follow guidelines that tell you to eat 6 to 8 servings of grain, cereals, and pasta and bread every day, logically that doesn't even make sense, especially if you're diabetic. So what you have to do is listen to your body and eat real food. So outside of the grocery store where the animals live and the vegetables and fruit live is where you should live. But I will say this, it's mostly about vegetables and animals. Most fruit has been genetically modified to be sweet. So a banana is 28 carbs divided by 4 is 7 teaspoons of sugar. So even the fruit, you've been told, is so fruits and vegetables, too much fruit. I'm a berry guy. Too much fruit is too much sugar. So you have to learn these little principles and realize, oh, if Eskimos don't eat fruit, then I don't have to have fruit. But the non-starchy vegetables and the animals prepared without the barbecue sauce and the flour and the cornmeal is how you live. And that's what your ancestors did. I mean, hunters and gatherers were not sitting around eating cereal. So once you learn those principles, you'll consider cereal a snack. And when you finish with me, you'll consider fruit nature's candy. Because you'll realize that it's too sweet for the goals that you're trying to achieve when it comes to your health.
Absolutely. So this next brother I want to speak to is a brother who's been a pillar in this city for some years, for at least 20 years. I've been out of school with him. And I used to hear this, he has a golden voice. I don't care if you're in a grocery store and he says, how much change do I have or how much do I owe you? You like, is that Reggie Smooth is Butter Brown? Like, or you can be walking down the street and you hear somebody say, what's going on, fresh? And they ain't talking to you, you just turn around. What the hell? Reggie on? It's Reggie Smooth is Butter Brown. He is one of our pillars in the city, somebody that we value, we cherish, because when anybody drive through the city, hear this voice, they'll never forget it. And if they actually meet the person behind the voice, they definitely will never forget it, because it's an amazing individual. If he tell you he's going to do something, and I've noticed this is always with the OGs. If they tell you they're going to do something, and I was raised by my grandfather, so I'm the same way, they're going to do it. He got off the radio, off the air, and came straight here. He didn't have to. I ain't paying. I can't afford it. But he told me he was going to be here. So I want to talk to this pillar because I've seen, as a youngster, the elevation he is. He runs the radio. He started off as a DJ. Now he runs the joint. And he's been the same person. When I say same, I don't mean he hasn't grown as an individual. I'm saying he's been the same down-earth, humble individual, whether he made $20,000 a year or not. He makes the $2 million, $3 million he makes a year as the program, as the man who runs the radio. So, Reggie, talk to us about pushing through situations you know as a man you're supposed to have positions, you're supposed to move and move up and continue to move, but how you did not let the stress or the lack of movement deter you, how you created other opportunities around you so that the city rallied behind you so much that they had to rock with you, that the corporations had to get their mind right and say, we doing a disservice by not having this man continue to be a pillar of this city. Talk to us about that, bro.
For me? It's like about me. Wow. First of all, thank you for the invite, Mariah. Thank you. And it's good to be on a panel with all these distinguished gentlemen. Mr. Wade and I go way back. We're on the same level. We grew up together, basically. And Doctor, thank you for your time. I worked in Chicago, so I appreciate your time. You've answered all of my questions that I have. I was going to ask you about fruit. I got to be a salad man now. I eat right maybe, I'm 57 years old, so I eat right maybe 3 times a week. That's eating salad. That'll be all I eat. But I do eat the ribs with the sauce, the steamed you know. I get maybe 5-6 hours of sleep. And I know that's bad being a man of my age, eating wrong, staying up late, getting up early. I'm tired sometimes. My voice is gone now, so I'm tired. But, and I do have a semi-stressful job. But when I'm in my office, I'm like, and I'm relaxed. I don't let this job get me, I won't let the job get me down. And I do that. There's people at work with the COVID situation and everything. We have more titles now, but I just don't let that get me down at all. If I gotta do something, I'll do it. Somehow get someone else to do it. And that's the way it is with me. Nothing gets me down. But I am tired a lot. Why am I tired a lot? That's what I want to know. That's the question. I'm tired a lot. I don't eat right. I'll swim. I'm going skating as soon as we leave this. But I'm just tired a lot. And I know I stay up late and get up early, but 5-6 hours of sleep. A man is 57. Should I be getting more sleep?
Yeah, it's not just, so if you look at research studies, they'll say somewhere between 6.5 to 8 hours is like what people need, right? Most people say 7 to 8, but I really think that some people do just fine on 6.5 hours. So you have to, when you get to the point where you have to be on a consistent schedule, but once you're on a consistent schedule, you'll find that you'll just wake up on your own, and it'll be at 6.5, 7.5 hours. So you'll figure that out with that. Some people struggle from sleep apnea. So if I'm snoring at night, that may be a sign that you're really not getting quality sleep. So I've done podcasts. I remember Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, on YouTube, just search my name and Dr. Michael Bruce, you'll see that episode. And there's so many things you can do to optimize your sleep. You can put the blue blocker glasses on, that'll increase your melatonin at night. You can put a light in front of you for 20 minutes, like a mood light, and that'll get your cortisol up in the morning. You can make sure the shades are black, and you can make sure you shower in the day. You can keep your room cool. Literally 65 to 68 degrees is better than 72 degrees in your home. So there's things you can do to optimize. But until, it's almost like a person that comes here and say, Doc, why do I have bags under my eyes? Then they say they get 4 hours of sleep. You don't have to be a doctor to figure it out now. So the goal is to prioritize sleep in a way that you haven't before. Maybe you're at 5, you're going to go to 6, and then what you're going to do is you're going to realize by doing that you will be more effective during the day. That's the biggest gift I gave myself. I go to bed usually, maybe not tonight, between 9:30 and 10, I wake up at 4:30 or 5, so I get 7 hours right. But then I'm like, let's go back to the Jaguar analogy. Maybe we'll call you a Range Rover, okay? So you're a Range Rover. And if you don't treat your Range, if you put that cheap gas in that Range Rover, it's over. So what you have to do is figure out, we cook on Sunday, or if I was at home, we would eat leftovers from Sunday. So we do Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. We cook enough food for multiple days. We throw it in the oven. I may have a steak for lunch as my only thing to eat. Or those ribs without the barbecue sauce, because I'm a carnivore for lunch. I don't eat breakfast, and then I have animal plus 1 or 2 non-starchy sides. But I'll make enough. This weekend we had turkey necks and we had pork chops. So it's okay to eat pork assuming that you cook it right? But we made enough for 3 days. So what you do is you plan and think through your week and say, how do I make sure I have the food at home? How do I make sure it's prepared properly? I don't use the air fryer that much. I love air fryers, but they're not big enough. So I have 2 ovens, and we bake a lot of food. And even if you don't know how to cook, the oven with some covered food, it cooks itself. So you don't have to be a master chef, or your family doesn't. So what I want you to do is start problem solving. And when you go to my website, Linktree, Dr. Tony Hampton, you'll see all of my social media stuff, right? If you go there, you'll see a list of foods to eat. You'll see, what's this Neston roll? It'll explain it. And it'll show you how to do low carb, why to do it. You'll see all of that stuff, and then you can start to learn principles. But you're going to take one bite of the elephant at a time. You're not the lady lion who put their jaws on that bison and it's over, right? We're not doing that. We're going to be like that little wolf, right? That grabs the leg and bites it, grabs the leg of the bison. Eventually the bison's going to lay down. So as you take your journey, one bite at a time, but you have to prioritize health, because I'm thinking about all the guys here and you're all doing great things, but I need you to be here 20 years from now, 30 years from now, because then you'll add so much even. You're going to be so much wiser than you are today, and then you'll add additional value. So we need to make sure that you prioritize health and not the things that we're trying to achieve, because we're all trying to achieve things, but we must be here to enjoy the fruits of that labor.
Thank you. So what I want to do right now, I'm gonna come out and join the audience. I'm gonna let somebody take my seat. This brother here, I know him, we went to high school together. We used to hoop. I say we used to hoop because I was garbage and he was tall. He was like the LeBron James of our time when I was in high school. We just came to high school, went to state every year for the record, in case y'all were wondering. But we were star athletes. I was a star athlete in baseball. He was a star athlete in basketball. And I want him to come up here and share his story because I want people to understand whether you're an average individual or you're a 5-star recruit athlete. If you don't know things about your health because you're not taking it up serious, then it can potentially cost you your life. So I'm gonna call my homie. I call him the big homie because he's literally the big homie. Deontay from Aurora up here. I want him to share his story about a condition that he had that he didn't know he had. He was a 5-star recruit athlete. So come on, show some love for Deontay.
All right. Hope everybody doing well this evening. Listen to the doctor talk. Man, I'm just appreciative for you, number one. Appreciative for the information that you are distributing like today. I don't think people understand how essential this is just, going forward in their lives. So I just commend you for what you're doing. Because it's easy for doctors a lot of times to come up and start talking about medicine. And when I heard you talk about why we don't go to the doctor. And a lot of times, because that's what they tend to do, is they tend to want to throw medication in our face right away. And there's so many holistic alternative routes that we have in life, but we have to do what's called some research. It's research, but it's personal research that you do for yourself. And it's me search. And as a teacher, I'm a teacher right now at Eastbrook Academy. Shout outs to my school, health teacher, physical education teacher, life skills teacher. So I'm preaching this. I'm preaching this all the time. I mean, I've had a couple young ladies at my school through our health program who have lost like 30, 40 pounds. Just because I kind of scared them on, do some research. Start to Google some of the things that are on the back of these labels. Like if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't put it in your body. So, like I said, I really just appreciate, the information because I thought it would come from a different perspective. But to hear it come from that perspective, which is something that I'm teaching holistically every day, man, I'm just really truly thankful for you all day long. So
Thank you, brother.
All right, so this thing that we call life, y'all, is a journey, and I'm just thankful that God has blessed me to go through some highs and lows, some ups and downs, but at the end of the day, be able to stay in that median and keep that ground, that base that we need in order to just be able to cope day to day. I heard you guys talk about, your kids, and yeah, I have a 7-month-old daughter right now, and my wife probably gets mad at me because my wife is the one who's like, oh, this is going on, and I'm like, okay, because I pray, like you said with the Bible, I pray about absolutely everything, and I worry about absolutely nothing at all. So that's one thing that I, can instill in my kids and my students. That's something that I try to do all the time. So, but I know when I was growing up, I do have a question for you, but we'll table that, but I want you to make sure you hear the question just so I don't forget to ask the question. So I remember when I was about 10, 11 years old, I had to go see the doctor, and the doctor told my mom that I had, a heartburn at 11 years old. And they didn't really want to do anything else with it, but they just told me it was something that I would grow out of. So we'll talk about that at the end of this, but I'm gonna keep it moving. So I played basketball, like Chad said, played basketball for a lot of years, always thought I was healthy.
didn't have any problems at all. I mean, if a coach would take me out of the game right away, I was hot. I was upset. Like, don't take me out. And Mr. Wade, you know, we go way back to the Warren Basketball League, and this man, he does have the strongest handshake that I think I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, because before one of them games, he almost broke a couple of my fingers, but yeah, it's all good. Yes, sir. So, so as I went through high school and college, I went overseas to Switzerland, played basketball. Never had any issues at all with anything. I mean, felt like I was an elite athlete in elite shape. But I remember one day, Sunday, watching TV, I get up real quick and I'm like, ooh, okay. I feel like a little twinge. And the twinge at the time was in my back. I felt like I had actually pulled a muscle. So, you know, me, like you said, we ain't going to the doctor. No, we're gonna try to figure this out. So for a couple of days, I'm like, okay, let me just take it easy and, kind of just slow poking around. And the pain went from my back, and then all of a sudden it was in my side. And now it's like not red flag time, but it's more of, okay, we got to make sure that we keep an eye on this. And a couple of days later, it went from in the side to now the pain was in my chest. Now we got to go to the doctor. Yes, it was one of those situations. And when I went, I told the doctor what happened, and he knew. He's like, I think you really pulled a muscle, but he said, I want you to take the stress test, too, just to be on the safe side. And I'm like, I don't need that. I'm good. I mean, I'm playing basketball at the time. I'm running around with the kids. I'm like, I'm in great shape. I know I don't need that. He's like, yeah, okay, let's just do this test just to be on the safe side. So I'm like, all right. So long story short, we come back the next day, and he said, yeah, you did pull a muscle. He said, but we also found something else. And I'm like, that's why we don't go to the doctor. Because you're always finding something else. But he said, the walls of your heart are like 2 or 3 times thicker than what they should be. And he says, you have a rare heart condition that's known as apical-hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And right away, all I could think about was one of my best friends, Dr. Hampton, who passed away from this. Because at the time, he was not supposed to play, supposed to be taking medication or whatnot. He just loved the game so much that he just wanted to continue to keep playing. And he ended up passing away after an open gym due to the heart condition. So I miss my brother. I mean, I really do. My name is Deontay. This is Dante. He lived 2 blocks down the street. Man, I emulated this guy, when everybody wanted to dribble like peanut butter, right? Am I right? Like all day long. So, hey, I appreciate that. But, knowing that what the situation and the way that it occurred, it was really mind-blowing, people. Because there's no warnings, there's no symptoms, right? For, cardiomyopathy. And the doctor told me right away, he said that there's a nickname for this, and it's called the silent killer. Because there's no warning, because there's no symptoms. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But I know one thing that does frustrate me is that, okay, this is Heart Healthy Month, February, but I don't hear a lot of conversation about this. I don't know if you guys, I don't know how much you analyze commercials and things of that nature, when you're watching TV. I haven't seen a lot of commercials talking about the heart this month. I haven't seen any heard it on Facebook or anything just saying that, hey, what is it, like 46% of black women, I think it's around that number, have some type of heart condition. That's almost half of the women on the planet. And the number for men is like 44%. So for something that is so prevalent in our community and something that is taking so many lives every year, but we don't talk about it. We don't have a program where people can learn more information about it. It's kind of like they don't want us to know. So that's really why I truly appreciate the angle that you attack this from, is because this is the angle that they really don't want us to talk about. They want to be reactive instead of proactive. And all of us in life, we need to learn to absolutely be proactive instead of being reactive, especially at the age that we are right now. So I just know with this heart condition that I'm dealing with, I thank God right now that, hey, I mean, I have, you wouldn't know it, I have a defibrillator, I have / pacemaking device in my chest right now. Thank God that I've never needed it. My kids at school, they call me Iron Man because I have this, you know, extra additional lifeline. But I'm thankful to be here today, just to be able to spread the word, because it is something that is near and dear to my heart, all pun intended. And we know that there's a lot of people that are dealing with these situations, so it's extremely important just about the stress. Before I worked at Eastbrook Academy, I worked as an alternative high school teacher for about 12 years. And when I say I dealt with some difficult individuals, that's an understatement. Man, I mean, even to this day, I'm still getting calls like, hey, do you remember this student? And I'm like, what do you mean remember? Like, they just got killed. So I know that the amount of stress that I dealt with throughout these years, I know that it had something to do with this heart condition that has, you know, been a blessing in my life, you know, at this point. So stress management, you know, making sure that you're eating right, staying away from the toxins, all these different aerosols and all that stuff. You know, do research is what's really important. I mean, we can sit here and listen to other people talk about X, Y, and Z, but do some research for yourself. Like, if you want to know about some holistic things to reduce your blood pressure, it's one click away. All you got to do is type it in Google. It's going to give you 1,000 different entities that you can look at, and prayerfully you can use some of this to change your life, to add longevity, you know, like into our lives. And that's what I try to preach to my students every day, that God blesses me to wake up. And it's fulfillment. It gives me so much joy just to know that I'm really trying to make a difference on the front line of this ministry. So I know with this heart situation, like I said, it's one of those things that we do need to get checked. The stress test is important, right? Yeah. If you haven't had a stress test, if you don't know what that is, that's where they put you on a treadmill, they hook you up to all the sensors, and then you have to walk for a short duration of time. Then from there, they put it on an incline, and now it speeds up a little bit, it speeds up. And they tell you all of a sudden to jump off, lay on this table, and now they're going to do the ultrasound, like to check your heart. That's the only way that we don't really know if something is going on, especially when we talk about heart conditions. Man, that's so key. And it's something that I really wish I would have did earlier. I wish that when I was coming up during that time when we talked about heart murmurs, you know, Doc, I wish that we had more information about it. I mean, I'm 44 years old, so growing up in the, you know, 80s, 90s, I don't think they knew as much as they knew. But the question that I do have is for the next young person that's like myself, that's 10, 11 years old. I mean, one of our kids might have a heart murmur. Like, what should they be doing at that age to make sure that it doesn't turn into what I have later on in life?
So I think, and you make some really good points, I think that research, you know, that's really important, because that's how I got into this whole wellness space. If I had gone just with the traditional training, I probably would have never done that at all. I had to kind of think outside the box. And so when I started earlier, I talked about how important it was to see where you're at the highest risk, right? And so you think about your journey, and I automatically know that with cardiomyopathy, there's some genetic components to that, and some of it is just in the genes, and some of it is novel, meaning you can have just like with COVID, you can have a little mutation, and it'll lead to how your heart's being formed and becomes abnormal, right? So, but we can't control our genetics, whether it's novel or something that you're going to have anyway. So, but if I have a family that's aware, so now I'm going to be more diligent with that family, and I may do things I wouldn't do with other kids. Literally, you could argue all athletes should have an EKG, right? And you may be able to see left ventricular hypertrophy, which is kind of a sign on the EKG that something's wrong, right? But population health, right? Do we have the resources to do that? And the reality is the decisions that we make sometimes in healthcare are based on resources. So what we try to do is have astute doctors like the one you had who said, let's do some more tests. And what we try to do is, as an individual, we do research. And then what happens with that is that I'm going to then identify things that are particular to me. And then I'm going to advocate for myself and say, Doc, this is in my family. I need you to look for this. And then what you do is the lifestyle piece. So so if you look at how lifestyle has impacted your life, your goal is to make sure, just like with the students and your family and the others you reach, how do I get them to hear this message so that I can have more young ladies that lose 40 pounds, right? And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying to because let me give you an example. I had a patient who was probably in his 30s. He was morbidly obese, and he had the same kind of problem. And the ejection fraction is how much fluid he's pumping out of his heart. It should be over 50% or more. His was like 25%, right? And when you get to that level, your risk for having a regular heart rhythm and all those things is... So what we do in healthcare is we'll say, put him on a beta blocker to slow his heart, put him on an ACE inhibitor to keep his heart from what we call remodeling so it won't scar, put him on a statin. So what we don't do is say, can we lose 100 pounds, right? And even if we say that to a person, we say, exercise more, eat less, and we don't show you how to do it, right? What we should do is flip that and say, you know what, let's create a health system, and we're doing this within Advocate Aurora. We have a weight management program. We're gonna hold your hand, we're gonna get you a nutrition person, an app that's gonna be with you to coach you, and we're gonna monitor you, and we're gonna make sure you lose that 100 pounds, because guess what happened to this patient after he lost 100 pounds? His ejection fraction went up to 50%. Now, I guarantee you the medicines would have never done that. So we have to, because the root cause of his cardiomyopathy was being, 350, 400 pounds. So that may not be your root cause, but the key is, what can I do to reduce the risk that these instruments in my body won't ever have to be utilized? That's the key. And once you do that, that's all you can do. Again, control your controllables. So I think we just have to be better at helping doctors think about root cause and try to create a system around wellness. We probably won't get there until we have a more universal health system where prevention is very profitable. It's already profitable, but when you're paying for it for real, you really are going to be focused on making sure people, and then that way we can say, let's spend a lot of money on these programs that are going to be utilized to keep people well.
And one key thing that you did say that I remember the doctor mentioning right away was, he said, well, when they told me I had this cardiomyopathy, he says, anybody else in your family have a heart condition? So right away, it makes you think about your whole family history. And this is something that, I'm looking at everybody out here, like if you haven't done that, then that's imperative that you check. And not just, the family that from family members that are not here, just trying to see, because these are some like repetitive patterns, in health, correct? That I really think, based upon what you're saying, like when we change the diet, when we discipline ourselves, like Mr. Wade is saying, if we can be that disciplined in life, because that's a strong discipline. But I think that we can break some of these curses, health curses that we have in our family. But in order to do it, you have to know what's in your DNA. You have to know what's in your blood. And as soon as he said that, I got on the phone. I didn't even make it on the parking lot by the time I was on the phone. Hey, anybody in your family got a heart condition over there? Anybody, so, and then I found out that the person he was talking about, was a cousin of mine who was in the city. And, rest her soul, that she did end up passing away, but she had a number of different things going on. But that's what's important, so, that's people that's out there on TV, that's the homework assignment that I give you right now is to, ask some questions about your family. Ask some questions about the history and try to just see, is there diabetes or, high blood pressure or cancer that run like through your family history, because these are some things that, with what you're saying, I think that we can curb this, we can turn this around, but it takes more people, like us and, like Chad showed the Chad for what he's doing for the day, it takes people to really give you the real information and not just want to throw medicine at you when you're faced with a situation, but give you the tools and the research and the knowledge that you need to prevent this from even getting to that point. And that's real wealth. That's real health.
And that's generational. So if you come to my home, you'll see. I'll always shout out to my cousin, Carol, who makes the mac and cheese, right? And I always remember one day she came to the house and she had prepared mac and cheese, but I said, let's try the mac and cheese with the cauliflower. And shockingly, she tried it and said, that's pretty good. What's more shocking is that the next time we had a family event, she said, why don't you make the mac and cheese? Now, you know how it is, and I don't know about all cultures, but with black folk, if you're good at making something, you don't play with that. And so that's become a new family tradition that Dr. Hampton makes the mac and cheese cauliflower. And all I do is switch the pasta for the cauliflower. Everything else is the same. But that's what you're saying. So we talk about genetics, how they impact you. Imagine what happens to the next generation. So my kids, that's all they know is cauliflower mac and cheese. So you are changing the dynamic. And why does it, I'll make this very quick. Why does it matter? Because pasta is not food. It's flour. Have you seen them? Have you been to Aunt Annie's and seen them make that? It's just flour, a little egg, if you're lucky, and water, right? So is it really food? The mice don't even, if you put flour in a little box, the mice just don't even go near it. Just like they don't go near the margarine, but they go near the butter, ironically, right? So the mice know more than we know. So now you're shifting from a 45-carb flour pasta to a 4-carb vegetable. So now it's real food and it's only 4 carbs. 45 divided by 4 is 11 teaspoons of sugar to your body. So if you're being responsible for the people you love who just happen to have hypertension, diabetes at the Thanksgiving table, you would serve them better to give them mac and cheese made of cauliflower instead of 11 teaspoons of sugar made of pasta, because all that inflammation eventually will get to your heart. And one of the things that you worry about with that enlarged heart is AFib, that irregular heart rhythm. And exactly. So, and this is the part that's crazy. If you're at 25 BMI, your risk for AFib is essentially not high. It's 0. It's neutral. If you go to BMI, body mass index of 26, it goes up 4%. And every time you go up a point, it goes up 4%. So if you're at 30, you might as well say, 5 times 4 is 20% higher just because you're at a higher BMI. Well, what's the obesity rate in our country? It's probably 60%, but what is it for communities of color? It's probably 80%. So you got 80% of the people in the communities of color at risk for AFib just because of their weight. So the goal is, if I eat the right food, those numbers start to go down, and the heart's not stressed because of the inflammation. And we know inflammation. When I said metabolic syndrome, this is an inflammatory disease. So that's what I want you guys to, again, these are nuggets, but as you grow one bite at a time, you'll be able to, you can't unlearn rice, pasta, and potatoes is 40 carbs divided by 4 is 10 teaspoons of sugar. You can't unlearn that. So what you do is you learn those nuggets, and then you take that information, and then you change your behavior over time.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, so we appreciate you, man. Thanks for sharing. Transparent.
I appreciate being here.
Yeah, man.
Has this been a blessing to anybody tonight?
Yeah. So one thing I appreciate about individuals is that we all process differently. And so there was a lot of seeds that were sown tonight. And no matter what seed that was planted, I know for me what stood out was mental health, how important that is. Just, with having children, so I'm sure there were some other things that may have stood out to each one of us. But those seeds, I believe, are going to grow. And, we just thank you all for coming out. And we want to thank Dr. Hampton again for joining us. And bringing this and everything else. All I want to say is everybody here, everybody that was invited was here for a reason. Obviously, I invited you personally, myself, I reached out to you myself. And that's because there's an attribute from each and every single one of you that I identify with and that I honor and that I respect. So I appreciate you even taking the time to even come sit here with me, sit here with us. I said me, I'm sorry. Sit here with us. And if there's anything you need me for, just like you showed up for me, I'll show up for you. So do not hesitate to call and ask me to show up, even if I got to change something in my schedule, because you didn't have to do it, especially with the weather, but you did it anyway. And I want you to know, everybody sitting here, that I honor and I appreciate every single one of you. And thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna let you go because I know we all are busy individuals here. So thank y'all so much for this men's community health session. Appreciate you.